Alright, next up in our series of Ultimate Beginner's Guides is the Origins section of character creation in Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader. Now, this is one of my favorite sections because, along with giving you all of the pros and cons of being from a specific place, you also get some really cool starting outfits. So we can just scroll through here and see all these different outfits that you're going to get based on what your base origin is, and of course there you'll go into your archetypes. But I love this part of character creation because of the just because of the outfits alone. Obviously there's a ton of information to be gleaned here from the features and heuristic modifiers, skill modifiers, and all the other things that you're going to get access to as you level up this character. So we're going to dive in. But before we do, if this is your first time tuning into one of my guides, welcome to the channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Daily streams happen at 5:30 a.m. and 8 p.m. Central. We multi-stream on YouTube and Twitch, although the guides and all the reviews and everything else happen on YouTube. That's my main channel. And of course, there's a Discord, so if you want to tune in there, you can. Without further ado, let's talk about the first of the origins here, the Astra Militarum Commander. Commonly known as the Imperial Guard, the Astra Militarum is the primary fighting force of the Imperium and the first line of defense from the myriad threats that endanger the existence of humanity in the 41st millennium. You have served as one of the commanders of an Astra Militarum regiment commanding thousands and winning battles in the name of the God Emperor. Now, the primary feature of the Astra Militarum Commander is regimental tactics. All of your allies and yourself deal an additional 20 plus 2 perception bonus damage to all enemies that are adjacent to the commander or their allies till the end of the next turn. All of your allies also take no damage from other allies' attacks, which is a big deal because friendly fire is a thing in Rogue Trader. I get nailed for this all the time because I don't pay attention because I'm so used to playing other games where there's not friendly fire. But you do have to pay attention to that, so this is really nice to avoid that. Plus 5 ballistics, plus 5 perception, plus 5 athletics, plus 5 medica. And then along the way, you're going to gain an additional plus 5 perception, plus 10 medica, and access to suppression fire. Well, the commander is under the regimental tactic effect. Your single target melee range and area attacks gain 20% to dodge reduction, parry reduction, cover penetration against enemies adjacent to the commander or their allies. Get field of fire. All of your allies gain a 5% rate of fire bonus for every attack they've made since the start of this effect. You also get timely rescue. Killing an enemy adjacent to an ally while under the effect of regimental tactics grants that ally an additional plus 10 momentum. You also get unflinching heroism. Every time the commander's ally uses a heroic act, the commander gains plus 5 to all their characteristics until the end of turn. And shoulder to shoulder. When you're adjacent to an ally, you deal an additional 10 plus your perception bonus to damage of all enemies adjacent to the commander's ally. This stacks with regimental tactics. So that's on top of the bonus that you get for this, which is really cool. Next up is the Commissar. Commissars of the Officio Prefectus are ruthless officers charged with maintaining the morale, discipline, and the fighting spirit of their Astra Militarum regiment. You used to be one of these faithful servants of the God Emperor, a living symbol of Imperium authority regarded with a mix of fear and awe by your subordinates. Cats are moving back in the back, so I gotta pay attention. Main feature is at all costs. Your next single shot or single target melee attack applies the following effects. The target becomes marked. The ally who kills the marked enemy gains an additional turn after the current one with plus 2 AP and plus 4 MP. And all allies gain an additional 1 AP and plus 3 MP for the next round. But it can only be used once per combat. And you yourself do not gain any of the bonuses from this. Plus 5 weapon skill and fellowship, coercion, and athletics. Also later on, fellowship and coercion modifiers. Duty and honor. When your ally is under the effects of all costs, that ally suffers plus 50% damage but gains action points and movement points instead of plus 1 and plus 3. You gain plus 2 and plus 4. Show the contempt. When you're adjacent to an enemy, all of your allies gain your fellowship bonus divided by 2 and resolve. Motivation. Anytime the Commissar grants additional movement points to an ally character, they give plus 2 movement points more. And if you kill a target with at all costs, you can then use at all costs once more this round for 0 action points. And when your momentum is less than 100 points, killing the marked enemy or targeting an ally grants plus 20 plus 2 times your fellowship bonus of momentum. Momentum is pretty key in combat scenarios. This is, probably a really good background for those of you who want to go down the route of, being that character who's going to manipulate everybody through the battlefield. So if that's going to be more to your play style, this is the one you're going to want to think about. Now, this is what I went with for my first playthrough that I'm working on right now, which is my Crime Lord Soldier. The Imperius survives and prospers in no small part due to the narrowness of its vision, but a rebellious mind and will such as yours could not be so easily constrained. The dark paths of smugglers and renegades that wind behind the facade of the Imperial Society offer a dangerous refuge for those unwilling to bow to the law. You used to be one of these dangerous yet resourceful individuals. And your primary ability here is Surefire Plan. So at the start of every combat, when you trigger this, one of the following effects happens based on what action you take. So at the start of combat, you can trigger this to gain an intelligence bonus, stacks of this Surefire Plan effect. Activation of this ability consumes a stack and makes the next action stronger depending on the type of action. So you get to, it's whatever your next action is. So you trigger this, and then whatever you do next gets this bonus. If you attack, you do 10 plus your perception bonus percentage more damage. If you move, you get some additional dodge and parry. And if you use a non-damaging ability on an enemy, like a debuff, they will then suffer a negative intelligence penalty and to their damage for 1 round. And you can use that multiple times per turn, which is really cool. Plus 5 weapon skill, perception, awareness, and logic, and eventually more perception and awareness. You get killing plan. Bonus damage of Surefire Plan is increased by 2 times your wisdom bonus. Not wisdom, sorry. What is the WS? Weapon skill. I don't know why I said wisdom. But again, remember these are things you earn later on. Escape plan. Bonus to dodge and parry from Surefire Plan are increased by your 2 times agility bonus. Dodging or parrying at least 1 attack by the start of the next round restores a stack of Surefire. You also get disorienting plan bonus. Penalty to dodge and parry reduction for enemies. Contingency plan. If at the start of the turn the criminal has no stacks of Surefire Plan, they gain a stack. And the last plan. Once per combat, if you have at least 1 stack of Surefire Plan, you do not die from lethal damage. Instead, you heal for 5 times Surefire Plan stacks of maximum percent of wounds, lose all stacks, and can no longer gain Surefire Plan stacks for that combat encounter. I'm really liking my Crime Lord, FYI. But next one, well, I don't know what I'm doing next. We'll cover that one later. Next up is the Ministorum Priest, and this is going to be for those of you who want to go down the route of being the ecclesiastical types. The ecclesiarchy, known formally as the Adeptus Ministorum, is a vast institution that oversees the galaxy-spanning religion of the Imperium. The ecclesiarchy's complex hierarchies of cardinals, missionaries, preachers, and zealous laity ensure the prescribed prayers and invocations are made, all the while instructing the masses to guard against heresy and deviancy. You used to be one of these fiery and charismatic individuals concerned with keeping a close watch on your congregation and viewing everything outside of your purview as heresy. Pascal is kind of like this. He's kind of scary sometimes with how much of a zealot he is. You get Warhammer. Grants momentums equal to 2 times devotees bonus. By the way, I believe this is... I have to check if Argenta has this or not. The ability also grants an additional bonus momentum for each enemy that is either in a 5-cell radius around the priest or is hit by the priest this turn. Plus 5 toughness, willpower, lore, Imperium, and Medica. And later on, you're going to get more willpower, more lore, litany of purification, which all enemies in the area of effect of Warhammer Freer's recital gain plus 1 stack of the disturbed effect. Enemies adjacent to the devotee gain 2 stacks instead. Also, all demons suffer damage equal to the momentum restored to the devotee while using this ability. You also get Litany of Hatred. You and your allies gain that bonus of 2 damage for single shots and attacks of opportunity for 1 round. Willpower. So Shield of Faith, you're going to gain a willpower bonus of 4 times % to your armor against attacks of demons and warp damage. Your resolve is also permanently increased by 2 for that round. That's cool. The Emperor protects. You gain a willpower bonus % chance to ignore an enemy attack. How much is the %? Doesn't actually say how much the % is. All right. And Flensing Faith. Melee flame and melt attacks against demons and psychers deals an additional willpower bonus damage and gains willpower bonus against armor penetration. Such attacks against Xenos deal an additional willpower bonus damage and gain bonus and armor penetration. So that's kind of cool if you plan on being like this, kind of like the paladin / cleric type. So if you want to go with like a paladin / cleric build, this is probably going to be what you want to pick. Also, you're going to be the guys running around screaming that everyone's a heretic. Navy officers make for great warriors, but they're a lot of fun regardless. But these guys are the ones responsible for the fleets of void ships that assert the dominance of the Imperium amidst the stars and fulfill other duties connected to the void and warp travel. You used to be a Navy officer and a commander of a void ship, hardened in numerous battles and famous for resounding victories. The primary feature is Brace for Impact, which is a personal thing. For 1 round, you and your allies in a 3-cell radius gain +2 deflection for each archetype taken by the Navy officer. So it's going to depend on how many archetypes you have. And you need to make sure that you're close to your allies when you pop this off so that they get that bonus. Also noted that you cannot be forcefully moved or over-penetrated while this is... they can also, but it can only be used 1 time per combat. +5 agility, fellowship, commerce, and demolition, and later on you're going to get agility and demolition bonuses. Plus you're going to get do not falter. All allies affected by brace for impact do not suffer the negative effects of melee superiority for the entire combat. You also get scatter. All allies affected by brace for impact suffer only half damage from attacks of opportunity. This also allows you to use any ranged weapons in threatened areas, knock enemies prone, and push them 1 cell away during the effect. During perfect timing, all allies gain 30% to cover penetration, and you also permanently gain 15% to cover penetration. And when you go into cover, all allies affected by brace for impact get a dex return with 0 AP and 3 movement points, and increase their cover efficiency by 20% for 1 round. So it's kind of like, you're giving lots of buffs to your allies with that primary brace for impact. And then, of course, everything else you're going to be doing. So it's kind of like you're captain of the battlefield to some degree in the sense that you're just giving lots of buffs that affect you and your friends. It's really cool. Abelard is a Navy officer, and that brace for impact is pretty cool when I get to use it. Quick commercial break, everyone, to celebrate and give thanks to all of these amazing people who keep me on the air full time. Really appreciate the support. All you got to do is join as a member. You get access to private videos. You can also do super thanks on any upload or super chats and stickers on any live stream or premiere you see. And beyond that, don't forget we're multi-streaming over on Twitch now, so you can support over there as well. Thanks so much to everybody. Let's get back to the video at hand. Nobody wants to be a noble, do they? Maybe. The high nobility of the Imperium are an enormously privileged and powerful elite, a breed apart from the common masses they rule. You grew into adulthood upon a pedestal of affluence and grandeur that towered high above the common masses. You expected their obedience and lived upon the fruits of their toil, surrendered to your family in solemn fealty. You serve me. I love the periods. You serve me. The noble assigns an ally who will become their servant until the end of combat. Anytime the noble's abilities affect the servant gains +5 to all characteristics until the start of the noble's next turn. Anytime the servant attacks the target that the noble dealt damage to the last turn, the servant gains a +10 plus the noble's fellowship bonus and a critical hit chance against that target. Can only be used once per combat. +5 intelligence, fellowship, coercion, and persuasion. Later on, you're going to get more fellowship and persuasion. You! Do something! If a noble uses an ability on the servant gains +1 action points their next turn. Does not stack with itself. You! Protect me! If the noble and the servant are adjacent to each other at the start of the noble's turn, they both gain temporary wounds equal to the toughness bonus. Or the noble's fellowship bonus, depending on which is higher. You! Go on! Gives your buddy 2 movement points every turn. You! Kill it. If your servant kills the target Let the noble dealt damage to last turn. The noble gains an extra action point next turn, and you are next. If the servant has less than 30% maximum wounds, the noble can use "You serve me" once more in battle, designating a new servant and removing the effect from the previous one. But you cannot designate a character who is already a servant during this combat encounter. Huh. That's very interesting. I wonder if that would combine with hang on, I forget the name of it really quick. It's the officer. I wonder if that would combine with the officer. Well, that sounds like it would combine with the officer very well, because you're able to literally just dictate what people are doing during a combat encounter. Sanctioned Psykers. This is probably one of the most complex origins in Warhammer, and ultimately really has a lot of fun that it adds to the equation when you're in combat and otherwise, because Psykers are like basically guaranteed to go crazy. And you know, I love the fact that a lot of the origins sound like they would be classes in and of themselves, especially this one, but it's really just a background, so to speak, that affects your overall archetype or your class decision. So it says Psykers are feared and distrusted, but are nevertheless valuable assets to the Imperium. The role of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica is to recruit, identify, and classify those found to possess psychic abilities. The most powerful who somehow survive the rigorous sanctioning rituals are selected to serve on the battlefield. The mind of a sanctioned psyker is steeled against the manifold dangers risked by wielders of warp powers. You are one of those found worthy to serve humanity and have miraculously survived the perils of the warp. It says, note, damaging psyker powers count as weapon attacks, counting towards the normal attack limit per round and gaining all the benefits of abilities and talents, increasing the damage of attacks. For example, a soldier using the run and gun ability will be able to use damaging psyker powers twice per turn, and an operative's analyze enemies ability affects the damage of damaging psyker powers. It's a really complex origin to have, but ultimately it can lead to a super powerful character if you want to play this in the long run. Features: you are a sanctioned psyker. You have a negative 20% chance to trigger psychic phenomena. Your psi rating is 0 out of the gate. You're going to get toughness 5, willpower 5, lore, warp 5, and carouse plus 5. And later on, you're going to get more willpower, more lore against warp, and a whole bunch of other stuff that we're going to go through here. So you're going to get, additionally, you're going to get access to, and these are sort of like the choices of the types of psyker you could be. Are you going to be into divination, telepathy, biomancy, pyromancy? All of these are different things. Divination is manifesting extrasensory abilities, glimpsing the future. Biomancy is healing wounds and altering physical characteristics, doing strength buffs and so on and so forth. Telepathy is controlling the minds of others, inducing terror, causing debuffs, so on and so forth. Pyromancy is all about fire, of course. It's craziness. Sanctic powers says, as a concentration of faith, sanctic powers are used by pious psykers to protect their allies and smite heretics. And then we get into the psi ratings, which provides you access to new powers and strengthens your existings. Still mind, your resolve is increased while veil degradation is 10 or lower. Inscribed soul costs no AP but deals direct damage to the psyker, equivalent to 20% of the psyker's maximum wounds. But the next power after this will not trigger psychic phenomena or perils of the warp. So this is where, man, we could get into some of this stuff later on. There's going to be a better and deeper, I don't want to say better, that's a bad word. There's going to be the ultimate beginner's guide that I'll do, which is just everything all in one. They're usually like 45 minutes to an hour long. And this is where we're going to go into stuff like this, you know, the difference between psychic phenomena and perils of the warp. Because there's some craziness that happens when you have psykers in your group, man. Sacred rituals, you have 25% chance to regain AP spent on psychic powers when veil degradation is 10% or lower. Blade of Light, force weapons, deal additional damage and armor penetration. You can enforce reality. So anytime you use a heroic act, you decrease the veil degradation by your intelligence bonus. It's really important to keep that veil degradation down low. Whenever you use a damaging psychic power on target 6 cells or farther away, they suffer an additional BS bonus damage. Ballistic skill damage. Second sight. Any powers that have a range of 2 or more have their range increased by a perception bonus. The first psychic power used each turn increases veil degradation by 2 points less, if you have stabilizing factor. If this talent reduces the effect on veil degradation to less than 0, the degradation is instead decreased by 1. Subtle manipulation, you can use a damaging psychic power while being threatened by enemies in melee range without provoking attacks of opportunity, which is very nice. An obscured threat, when you're not in the target's line of sight or you're in cover, all resistant tests against targets suffer a -4 psi rating penalty. Again, this is one of the more complicated origins to choose from, but it is ultimately one of the coolest long-term if you really want to go that route of being a caster and dealing with the complications of the void and warp and your head blowing up if you're not careful. So there you have it, everybody. That is, in a nutshell, the beginner's guide to the origins of Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader for new players. So hopefully you're about to sink your teeth into this game. It's an amazing game. If you haven't played it yet, it's a perfect time to get into it. Owlcat makes great games. They've done some great jobs. They've done a great job with the Pathfinder games, and so far Rogue Trader has been an absolute blast. I'm having a blast. Don't forget, daily streams, 5:30 in the morning, 8 p.m. at night, Central Time. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Follow along for all the things we do. Check out all the other playlists because we do a ton of different stuff, multi-streaming on YouTube and on Twitch. But all the guides, the reviews, the movie reviews, the gaming news, all that stuff happens on YouTube. Don't forget to check the Discord, and I'll see everybody in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Happy gaming.